Thank you, Walter. I told him I don't want to be a colonel, I want to be a general. Thank you, Walter, and thank you so much to the Aspen Institute for hosting this event. It's really terrific, and thanks for being such a great champion for our children. Our children. We hear those words all the time, and they're the reason we're here today. You know, we really think about our children when we hear every Washington advocacy group talk. You know, it's just amazing. So where are we? You know, why are we here? We're here because, wait a minute, my technology is gone. I knew this was going to happen. You know, when we talk about our children, I hear a lot about people talk about, well, No Child Left Behind, that's not for our children, that's for other people's kids. It's not about my school, it's about their school. But we know better than that. It's really about every school. These kids are counting on us, the grown-ups, to see about them, to make sure that they have a quality education. I know you understand that, because we're not just advocates, we're agitators. Our movement to hold schools accountable didn't start in Washington. It started in states and school districts all across this country, and it resulted in No Child Left Behind. The law is a household name, but it's often misunderstood. No Child Left Behind has been called a war on childhood, a curse on teachers and students, a ploy to destroy public education, and my favorite, an unredeemable experiment that has done incalculable damage to our schools. Wow. It's clear some people don't like accountability. It's been blamed for everything from child obesity to head lice. These keepers of the status quo prefer inertia and obfuscation to reform. But it's not about them. It's about our children. So it doesn't bother me if a few grown-ups are uncomfortable or second-guess our efforts. So now it's fair to ask, how are we doing? Test scores are up. The achievement gap is narrowing. According to the nation's report card, since 2000, more kids are learning reading and math. In math especially, we're making great progress. Look up there. And the children once left behind are making our greatest gains, as you can see. The fact of the matter is, majority students will be a majority by 2023, so we've got to get it right. Of the students that entered kindergarten in 2000, 1 in 10 was limited English proficient. 4 in 10, poor enough to qualify for free or reduced lunches. 7 in 10, not proficient in reading and math by the 4th grade. And if past trends continue, 3 in 10 of all high school students and half our Hispanic and African American students will not graduate from high school on time. Think about that for a second. Half. Think of the untapped potential. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Folks, the fact that half our African American and Hispanic kids are getting out of high school on time should matter to all of us. In fact, really, it should shame us. What does dropping out cost an individual? What does it cost society? An adult who dropped out is 41% more likely to be unemployed, 51% less likely to vote, 57% more likely to receive food stamps. And the thing is, we know where the problem lies. 15% of our high schools produce 50% of dropouts. It's in these schools where our most effective educators are needed, but often that's not where they wind up. I know many people in this room are working on changing that, and I think we'd make an even bigger difference if we paid our teachers for results. We know what works: effective educators, reliable data, and proven strategies. Educators now use data to improve performance. Parents now get report cards for their schools, not just their kids. And schools now have a deadline for results, grade level or better, by 2014. This is a huge sea change, and I think we hit a nerve. Here's what some have said about that. It's setting up schools for failure, an unrealistic expectation for teachers, an absurd goal, grade level or better by 2014. To those who reject this goal, I ask, what's your answer? I have yet to meet a parent who doesn't want their child on grade level right now, today, not 2014. It's not absurd. It's the least we can expect from our schools. But the excuses crowd often doesn't see it that way. They say that teaching reading means you can't teach art, that focusing on our disabled students means ignoring gifted students, and that test is a four-letter word. I disagree. And I know a lot of teachers and principals who disagree because I've met them, including Dr. Molly Howard, National High School Principal of the Year. She said that accountability is here to stay. The genie is out of the bottle. The excuse that some students will drag down everyone else is worse than false. It's the soft bigotry of low expectations. So, enough excuses. If we don't believe that education is a civil right and a matter of economic competitiveness, we're kidding ourselves. The world doesn't grade on a curve. In 1975, the year I got out of high school, America was number 1 in college completion. In 2005, we were number 10. Just to stay competitive, post-secondary education must become twice as productive as it is today. Studies show that 20 million more Americans will need higher education by 2025. Today, a college graduate stands to earn $1 million more than a high school graduate. The American dream is about our kids doing better than we did. But at current rates, my daughter's generation will not be better educated than mine. We need more accountability, not less. I believe that what gets measured gets done. In Texas, I think I've got some of my fellow Texans here, in God we trust, all others bring data. Because of No Child Left Behind, we have lots more information than we did 6 years ago, because states test kids annually, disaggregate data, and attach consequences to it. So we must resist pressure to weaken or water down accountability. We also need to know, how are we doing as a nation? For years, we've relied on our leading economic indicators to paint a picture of the economy. So now we need to focus on our leading education indicators. Do kids know how to read and do math? Are minority students lagging behind their classmates? Are kids graduating from high school on time? Are they ready for college work? And when they get there, have they earned a diploma? These 5 indicators are national, results-based, and reliable. Together, with No Child Left Behind, they provide a barometer of success. Let's take them one by one. Achievement in reading and math. 2000 was the first year that we had data from the nation's report card in both subjects. Since then, our 4th and 8th graders have increased 8 percentage points in proficiency. The achievement gap. On that same test, African American and Hispanic students used to achieve at less than 1/4 the level of white students. Now they're about 1/3, not nearly good enough, but on the right track. High school graduation rates. While our youngest kids are doing much better because that's where we focused, the same can't be said for our older students. College readiness. Scores on the SAT and ACT are flat, as I'm sure you've heard. Only 42% are really ready for college-level work. And finally, college completion. Among 25 to 34-year-olds, we're at 31%. Folks, Denmark and Norway are passing us by. I took these 5 indicators, weighted them equally, and came up with one number that parents and policymakers can follow. While we've improved 5 points since 2000, we still have a lot of work to do. And the American people need to know it. We used to measure schools just by how much money we spent, not asking what we got in return. I want Americans to follow our progress. I want them to hold us accountable for keeping our promise to provide a quality education to every single child, the only outcome that matters. If they're informed, they'll care, they'll expect and demand change, and they'll join us in our fight for reform. Meaningful reform can only be sustained with public support, the kind that ended slavery and gave women the right to vote. President Lincoln said that America cannot long survive half-free. I believe it cannot long survive half-educated either. You tell me, whose child will we leave behind? Yours? Mine? Someone else's? The last slide I left blank for a reason, because a child is not a statistic. A child is another chance for us to do better. Will we have the courage to sustain the accountability movement by working together? I want a quality education for my kids. I know that's what you want for yours. Why would we ever think that any mom or dad wants anything less for their own child? So, as I leave office, I just want to say that I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I know that I'm going to be your fellow warrior in fighting this fight to make sure every single one of our kids is achieving on grade level. It's the least we can do for them. It's what we must do for them. I thank you. I look forward to working with you, and I commend you for all the work you've done in this great, great cause that is before our country. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you all. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce a fellow warrior. Here's a guy who puts his money where his mouth is. At his age, no age jokes, Romer, he could be relaxing, kicking back, making lots of money, but he's not. He's in fighting the fight for every one of our kids. And this year, he has worked so hard to raise this issue, to put it before the public, to gain the kind of public support that I've talked about. And Roy, I'm proud to be your partner. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Roy Romer.